Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I do hope it finds you well. My name is John, and I am an author, and I am coming to you here on yet another what I've taken to calling a Talking Tuesday, where I go over some of the things that have influenced me and also my interest in general. And this week, I am going to talk about the Muppets, the creations of Jim Henson and the Jim Henson Creature Shop. Um, this is one that also goes back pretty much as far as I can remember. The lullaby my mom tended to read to my sibling and I, or sing to my sibling and I, when we were really little kids, was The Rainbow Connection from the Muppet movie. I don't remember the first time I saw the Muppet movie, but I've seen that oh so many times over the years. That was just a big formative. I mean, that particular movie and that journey that's really just so inspirational of trying to find and be true to yourself, but also share that self and share your creativity with the world. Um, I remember, occasionally watching, you could find it on like VHS or whatever, some episodes of the classic Muppet Show, which I always loved. Um, and I believe, I mean, I'm sure there was other movies, but one of the first movies that I clearly remember definitely going to see in theaters was a Muppet Christmas Carol or the Muppet Christmas Carol. I can never remember if it's A or the at the start of that title. Um, which is quite probably not quite probably is my favorite adaptation of the many adaptations of the Christmas Carol. The Muppet Christmas Carol is still my favorite. I mean, the songs are great. They do a great job of adapting the story, and quite surprisingly, it's also a story where they managed to through Gonzo as serving as the narrator slash Charles Dickens are able to incorporate some of Charles Dickens's wonderful language and descriptions in it. And it's just a really great rendition of the movie. I've seen that Lord knows how many times. Muppet Treasure Island, The Great Muppet Caper. I grew up watching Sesame Street as well. I distinctly remember that was always one where watching as a kid of Sesame Street. And as I got older, I started to really, enjoy some of the mastery of just what they were able to achieve and bring to life with the both smaller puppets, the classic Muppets, larger puppets and animatronics. I mean, in movies, TV shows, just wonderful how they're able to bring such life and relatability, but also like all kinds of like alien and fantasy races. I mean, I remember, you know, watching and loving. I love, Labyrinth. That's another great one. Love the music. Love the music. Love the movie. Everything about that. I've always been to some degree creeped out by the Dark Crystal. When I was young, the Skeksis, were I find particularly creepy and kind of frightening, but in kind of in a fun way. And as I've gotten older, honestly, the Gelflings fall kind of under in the uncanny valley for me, where there's just something slightly off-putting about them, but just the absolute gorgeous mastery of like technical mastery that went along with that. Um, I've not seen some of the newer Muppet stuff, which I've also heard sort of mixed reviews about, to which it kind of seems like, for lack of a better word, they've maybe not quite understood them. The Muppets sort of work best in sort of an odd, like it's sort of an odd balance that's kind of as when some of you know Jim Henson tragically passed away, and a lot of the classic Muppeteers and creators have you know passed away or at least retired from doing the Muppets, have maybe sort of lost that wonderful balance they were able to achieve, but sort of treating what they were doing 100% seriously, but also sort of winking and nudging and leaning on the fourth wall of, of course, we know exactly what it is. It's, you know, um, but yeah, and I've seen quite a bit of the Muppet Show now. Um, and really, it's just, it's some of the things I've learned and taken from watching the Muppets is, again, that sort of, that it certainly impacted my sense of humor, the sort of sarcastic, completely serious, but also sort of winking and leaning on the fourth wall a little bit jokes, which I love. I don't, at least so far, I might do that something like that down the road, but I haven't really incorporated it in my writing. But I love watching it. And you've got just the message throughout of like following your dreams, being yourself, doing what you love, which comes through both in the Muppets themselves and sort of their whole journey, and their personalities are very much about being themselves and doing what they love. What they've done with bringing other actors into the fold. you know that's one of the triumphs of the original Muppet Show is, I mean, very famously, they really like to try to get to be sort of the variety shows that were common in the 70s, really trying to get established and well-known actors to come on as guests. And it took like a season and a half, something like that, to finally convince them and show them that the Muppets really were more than willing to do, you know, that they didn't have to be, the actors coming on didn't have to be doing silly kiddie things, as has always been the misperception of the Muppets. Um, but really, they could come on and do what they love. So you start getting just some wonderful, obviously, these actors come on, they, sing or act or do something that's in tribute to their career, but they just have so much fun, like, and talking about their passions. So, I mean, you got Vincent Price coming on and obviously doing some stuff nodding to his legendary horror roots, but there's an entire segment talking about his love of food. And you know they got the famous ballet dancer Rudolph Nureyev, really wanted to come do an adaptation of the ballet Swan Lake, called Swine Lake with Miss Piggy. So they literally rented a stage and built a full size, life size version of Miss Piggy for him to dance with. And just, he wanted to tap dance, so he could tap dance. They let him tap dance. So really, just that kind of like being yourself and expressing yourself is so wonderful. And really, the classic Muppets, and this is both, I mean, Sesame Street's done this amazingly. The Muppets have a lot of their movies is, there's a great there's a big difference between something that's only for kids and something that's suitable for kids. The first, if it's only for kids, it's really aimed at, maybe it's educational, maybe it's not, but it's aimed exclusively at where really only kids are going to enjoy it. Suitable for kids means it's got, educational content and nothing that's, any kids are going to, they're interested in the fun and hijinks, and there's a nice educational element, but there's also jokes in there that, older siblings and parents are going to appreciate. I mean, it's an art form, but there's absolutely a way of, you know, writing some at times surprisingly kind of adult jokes, but phrasing them in a way that no kid under a teenage age is going to understand or get the joke. It's, or there's a surface level joke there that they're going to laugh at, but there's a deeper joke or a little play with like wording or a quick aside reference that the kid's not going to get or is not going to matter anything to the kids, but the parents or older siblings are going to find that hilarious, and it really does a great job of bringing the whole family together. Um, and yeah, and aside from the creations of Jim Henson, I love what the Creature Shops has done. I mean, the amazing work they've done in this in the Star Wars films of bringing various creatures to life, particularly in the original trilogy, but I know they did some later. Particularly, obviously, most famously, Frank Oz is just phenomenally brilliant Yoda in Empire and Return of the Jedi. Obviously, brought back partly puppet, partly CGI in later films, but still voiced by Frank Oz. It's exceptional, exceptionally well done. Um, there's a that it's a real shame that it only got one season, but I mean, if you're wanting to appreciate just the absolute magnificence and genius of puppetry at its best, the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance sort of prequel series to the film from the 80s on Netflix is just it is jaw-droppingly a beautiful and well constructed and also a really great fantasy story. That's one of the things I always loved. The Dark Crystal is a really great fantasy story, which I really appreciate. And just very, the guts of really not having any truly human characters. Still, again, find that even in the new one, the Gelfling a little bit uncanny valley for me, but it doesn't take away from just the puppetry exceptionalness of the series. One of my favorites, and I'll talk about this more in another video. One of my favorite science fiction series is Farscape, which was very, very much consciously based around where pretty much two of the main characters and pretty much all the aliens, at the very least, the truly alien aliens in Farscape, were made by the Jim Henson Company, which produced was one of the producers and main things of the show, and Brian Henson, Jim Henson's son, was very much involved. Um, Another one I wish I knew where to. I'll link if I can find a place where it's available online. I'll link it below. Another one that it's probably less known than some others, but that I highly, highly, highly recommend is I believe one of the last projects that was very least completed before Jim Henson's untimely passing. But there's a series called The Storyteller. First season has, I think, 9 episodes, sort of taking and adapting classic fairy tales, where a lot of the fairy tale creatures and stuff are Muppets, um, with literally like a massive who's who of British actors that would become better known in the following decades, playing sort of the human characters. First season is 9 episodes, narrated by the late great Sir John Hurts. And then there's a second season of, I think, 6 episodes telling stories adapted from Greek mythology, not narrated by Sir Michael Gambon. It's ingenious. It is really like if you love Muppets, if you love fairy tales, it is it is an absolutely phenomenal. The Storyteller is an absolutely phenomenal series, and I highly recommend anyone check that out. But yeah, that's just a big part of my humor and personality, and really kind of my life philosophy. A lot of sort of being yourself and not being afraid to put stuff out there that I've been bad at for quite a bit of my life, but I'm trying to get a lot better at. It comes from my love of the Muppets. I'm going to end with my usual, pitching you to check out my works. I have The Shadow of the Past and The Sunburned Red, both available on Amazon, which is linked below, as are my socials and a link to my websites. I'd love to hear your comments. What do you think of the the Muppets. What are some favorite series and shows and movies of yours from the Muppets? Love to hear all that. Like, share, subscribe, follow my socials. All of that would be amazing, as would, of course, checking out my books. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful day, that you get a chance to either do or experience something creative, and I'll catch you on the next one.